Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of the Goblin Gauntlet. We are here with Tom Hepp, aka Negator77. Tom is one of Magic Online's most feared Depths players, and was the trophy leader of the past season. Say hello, Tom.
Hey, how's it going?
We've got Tom to teach us, hopefully, some of the ins and outs of the Depths matchup. Now, this is one that's been very tough for Goblins historically and continues to be. I've had some moderate success against it. I've managed to be around 50-50 against these kinds of slow Depths versions across my time playing. And I believe that there's a lot that Goblins can do to try to get an edge, even though this matchup is quite tough. So we're going to play a couple matches with this list that you see here that Bob Huang 4-1 to prelim with. He actually beat me with this list in the prelim. And our games were pretty close. And I did look back at it, and I did make an error in game 1 that may or may not have won me the game. I ended up being 3 points short, and if I used a port slightly differently, I could have delayed the Merit Lage for a turn, so it's hard to tell. So this is what we're going to be testing out. For Goblins, we've got this list here. It's not my current list, but it's kind of a hypothetical moderate hate for Depths. Depths is very unpopular on Moto at the moment, but across my time, I've usually averaged 2 to 3 genuine sideboard cards kind of specifically for Depths that do obviously hit other matchups, but are best against Depths. And so here we have one Caracas, one Piffing Needle. We've got a Chain Whirler that will bring in, and then maybe a Surgical and maybe a Pyrokinesis, depending on how many creatures we're expecting out of Tom's board here. So first we're gonna lead with some questions from the people in the Patreon Discord. We've got a whole bunch of them, which I think are pretty interesting. And they're mostly, I think, for you, Tom, from your perspective, will be very helpful here. So Skinny is asking, if I was at my LGS and had multiple Depths players, what would I board in to max out my chances to beat them? And so I guess that's the general questions, like what are the best sideboard cards that Goblins has access to for Depths?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on making the assumption that most of the Goblins lists splash black nowadays.
Almost every competitive one does, yeah.
Okay. So right off the bat, you have the colorless or lands-based options. You can always jam a Caracas into your list, and that's always going to be another speed bump or card that we have to play through. Pithing Needle is a very good one. Has a lot of uses in the matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Particular hits both sides of the combo. And it's just annoying for Depths to answer. I mean, they basically only have some number of decays, and that's it. So if a Needle can come down early, that can often really, really slow the deck down. Then once you get into primary color, if you really, really want to go after Depths players, you have access to Blood Moon, and the black cards in particular, Diabolic Edict and Liliana's Triumph are very good. Those are like the 4 or 5 that I would focus on that have the maximum impact in the matchup.
How do you feel, as a kind of a follow-up to that? I basically, since the rules change about Blood Moon and Depths, and then the printing of Force of Vigor, I felt like Blood Moon is largely a trap, because it feels like it's just opening up you're opening up yourself to so much risk, and it's quite slow. Like, you can't just keep a hand off of Blood Moon because you're not going to play it until turn 3. Turn 2, if you're really lucky and you have a Prospector or Wit to go with it, but that requires a 1 of with a 2 of,
Sure, I think that's a reasonable issue. The speed portion in particular is it's going to not be good enough against Depths nut draws. So I think it's kind of in conjunction with the rest of your disruption. So you assume that a port or a wasteland,
right.
Something you have to slow them down to get to the point where that card's relevant. As far as Force of Vigor goes, I don't think too many skilled depths pilots are going to be running, are going to be bringing Force of Vigor in against goblins in numbers.
Okay.
I don't think it's high impact enough. I mean, it's usually going to only hit one of your cards at best. Like maybe there's a dream world where you already have an Ether Vial in play and then play a Blood Moon and they hit both, but that seems kind of a corner case. I don't think it's worth bringing it in for only a handful of cards.
And I guess you only have so many green cards to pitch too.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't want to be removing. I mean, you will if you have to, obviously, but you don't want to be removing crop rotation or even a reclaimer.
Right.
For Force of Vigor.
Yeah.
Especially with slow depths because they're a little bit heavier on the black count with Dark Confidants and things like that.
Makes sense. So here's another question. In the current meta, how many sideboard slots can be devoted to depths? I guess is the way I'd phrase that. I'm only playing like really one sideboard card for depths at the moment. I've got the one needle that's like always in my sideboard no matter what I do, and then I've got like the Chain Whirler's always there. So I only have like 2 actual sideboard cards in my normal list for depths because the deck is just not very represented right now.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Not that I trust the tracking sites because they're horribly skewed by Wizards only releasing, partial league data, and then on top of that, the prelims being
3-2 or better,
horrifically slanted to the 20 to 40 people that play in them any given week.
Right.
So you're going to see the same handful of decks repeatedly over and over again.
Yeah.
When you go to like Goldfish and you see, decks that like 1 or 2 human beings on the planet play, and they're in the top 15 decks played.
Cough, cough, Esper Hay Bears.
That's one of the examples I was looking at. So it's kind of faulty, but when you see depths on that site and others at around the 1% range, there's just no way to, it's one thing if the person that asked one of your first questions, like where you're in a local metagame and a handful of people are going to be running the deck. If you're running it in any kind of open meta right now or online, I don't think it's justifiable, unless you just hate the deck and don't want to lose to it. I don't think it's justifiable to run more than a couple of sideboard cards.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So kind of a 2-pronged question. How important is Wasteland in the opener, and what is the optimal use of Wasteland? So kind of talking about sequencing. That I know that's a thing that a lot of people trip up.
Yeah, there's 2 schools of thought, and I think it really depends on what version of depths you're playing against too. So against Turbo, they have significantly less lands. You're talking 23, 24 lands as opposed to the 27 or 28 lands that you'll see out of slow black-green or much rarer, but if Bug. Both of those lists often run in the 26 to 28 land range. So I know there's a good theory that you just fire off the Wasteland on something like a turn 1 Urborg and hope that buys you the time that's necessary. I think that's a much stronger strategy against Turbo, where you're a huge dog to begin with because of the absolute speed of that deck. Against slow depths where they have basics and they have a ton of lands and Mox Diamonds, I think Goblins can attack the diamonds too, but I think it's just better to develop and not fire off the Wasteland as soon as possible. Make them find a way to beat the Wasteland. Slow depths doesn't have a set of pithing needles like Turbo does.
Right.
So it's not as trivial. Yes, they probably have 3 Wastelands and some number of tutors to get the Wastelands, but make them do it. It buys you enough time to put additional pressure on it. As far as how important it is in the opener, I think it's probably, short of some ridiculous fast kill involving Lackey, I think it's probably the single best card in the matchup from the Goblin side. So I think it's very important to have it in the opener.
So you would say, like, unless your hand was very exceptional in some way, and that it had like turn 3, turn 4 kill that maybe involve a Sling Dang, so you can get above 20 and survive 1 Merit Lage hit, it would have to be like has to be like that good in order to justify keeping a hand without Wasteland.
Yeah, or something like a
needle or something.
Either Lackey into port or Vial into port, where you have some means of slowing them down or disrupting them.
Sure.
And while working towards like a turn 4 or 5 kill kind of thing.
Sure.
If you don't have some way to both disrupt them and reasonably clock them, I don't think it's keepable.
Sounds good to me. This is interesting. Ratio of Hexmage versus Stage conversions to the 2020. So how often does Depths use one or the other, do you think?
Statistically, it's usually the Stage is more. I know the London Mulligan has really assisted in early combo hands and turns in general. So it may feel like you're getting turn 2 Hex Mage more often because you are. But overall, there's usually no way for the depths deck. I mean, there's some cards like Sylvan Library, but it doesn't have a ton of ways to find the Hex Mage. They're either going to draw it or they're not. Whereas Stage is, depending on the version, you can have like anywhere from 8 to 14 virtual copies of Stage. So for anything along the lines of Pithing Needle, it should almost always name Stage unless you have some additional information or you're just straight up dead to a Hex Mage. But even if you're straight up dead to a Hex Mage, that might be an acceptable cost that you just have to live with. More often than not, Stage is going to be the primary path.
That's really interesting to me because my experience has often been like I'm often playing my Needle early on Hex Mage so I don't die faster because say I have like ports and stuff, then the Stage kill takes a decent while longer to put together because it requires more mana. So I've been like Needle as the delaying tactic and then port waste to handle the Stage, because to beat, that's quite a lot of mana to Stage combo plus be able to crop rotation for Wasteland or something like that.
Sure, it's always going to be contextual based on everything else that's in your hand.
Sure.
So if you have the pieces that you were just discussing in conjunction with a Needle, then yes, like if you can handle the Stage because you have backup port or ports or some other means to slow them or disrupt them, then yeah, obviously you cut off their path to kill you quickly. But all else being equal, if you have, let's say you have just the Needle plus a clock that's going to kill them in 3 or 4 turns, I think you just accept losing to the Hex Mage in that spot as opposed to drawing to like maybe a port that could stop them, because it's really just 3 cards they need if you don't have a Wasteland in play. If you have the Wasteland to go with it, then it's a different conversation.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
okay,
all else being equal, they're more likely to try and combo with Stage than they are with Hex Mage.
Gotcha. This is a bit of a joke question, I think. Likelihood of Crap Rot lurking in your hand.
100%.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I mean, sometimes you can kind of parse it out based on their sequencing.
Sure.
That they definitely have it, or that they're definitely representing. But short of them like bleeding information to you, or it just being obvious based on how their hand played out, it's basically just it's a 4 of. So as often as you'd expect a 4 of.
Gotcha. So we covered this a little bit, but where do we see depths, or where do you see depths in the current meta? So not good right now is kind of the general consensus.
I just don't see the point in playing a slower combo deck at this point.
When Breach exists.
Breach is a deck that not only is a better combo deck, but it's kill, it's win condition, it's everything about it is so compact that they have room for 8 counters plus answers plus can board into alternate plans, and the mentor plan is when they board is almost arguably as good as the main deck plan. It's just, why would you run an inferior combo deck essentially?
So, is sideboarding drastically different from our side between Goblins from Turbo, medium, slow depths? I think from my perspective, the thing I've started to do is basically since the printing of Plague Engineer and Collector Oof and the adoption of more and more creatures in the depth sideboard, I've started boarding in Wine Pyrokinesis against them. It feels kind of bad against such a heavy discard deck, but getting a 0 mana 2 for 2 can be really, really, really valuable. So I think Pyrokinesis can come in against the medium slow depths styles, and then Turbo, it doesn't really do anything because the only creatures in the deck are the Hex Mages, and then I don't know, does Turbo play Safekeeper always?
Turbo has Safekeeper in the board, but it doesn't need it in the matchup.
Right.
It's kind of like one of those things where if you really want to bring in some number because you expect, I guess it really depends on what you see. If you think are familiar with the Goblins players list and you think they have additional cards like Caracas, then it becomes a little bit more, acceptable. But I don't board in any of them. My board against Goblins with Turbo is just a couple of decays, that kind of thing. Just answers to anything that you might expect that can also indirectly kill a lackey or vial, that sort of stuff.
Nice.
I don't bother with safekeepers. So the only thing you'll see out of depths is the hex mages.
Right.
Oh, this as far as turbo goes. But yes, I think removal spells, pyrokinesis, or anything else along those lines would be much better when you're running a deck that has 3 to 4 copies of Reclaimer for Dark Confidants in addition to the hex mages, and then sometimes you should, against the slower version, you're going to expect the engineers, like you said, too. So you have at least 14 to 15 quality targets.
Yep. Most overrated card to bring in against depths.
Surgical Extraction. Not close. I think people go for the gotcha plan. Like if I have my wasteland, I'll hit a key piece and then I'll surgical it. But strong depths players do not expose their depths before they have to or before they're ready to go. If they even 10% think that you're going to have a surgical extraction, they're just not going to do it. So things have to go really, really right. You have to have an active wasteland that they can't answer and a combo piece on the table.
So would you rate the a second pyrokinesis better than the surgical?
I would, yeah.
Okay.
Against slow anyway.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. And then is Merit Lage and Eldrazi?
Might as well be. I mean, it sort of has that kind of feeling, right? The game just ends whenever it swings, usually.
I can't Crater Maker Merit Lage. What the hell? Like, it kills every other thing. Every other Eldrazi.
Crater Maker has its limitations.
Yeah, I guess. So it can kill Emrakul, but it can't kill Merit Lage. What's up with that?
I think that's fair.
All right.
Ledge doesn't have Annihilator 6. So
it's true.
It's all even.
It's true. So that was from Dow's on the Discord. And then we've got a couple other questions. What steps do you think Goblins needs to take in order to win the match versus Depths?
What steps it needs to take? Just establish his clock as fast as possible. I think you guys got some much better tools. I think the matchup used to be significantly worse. I think Sling Gang is a house.
Yeah, because it turns the clock, one turn different, which is usually a huge deal.
Yeah, so I think basically just, I don't know. I don't think playing the long game is in Goblin's favor, particularly unless it can get to that card. So establish the clock as fast as possible and disrupt along the way.
Sounds right to me. However, the actual solution for Goblins is step 1, find your cousin. Step 2, get cousin in the cannon. Step 3, find another cousin. That is the true way to beat Depths.
Are you saying shower belcher?
No, it's a fodder cannon.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
That would be a good flavor text for shower belcher too, though.
It would. All right, and then more questions from the Undead Dwarf, who seems to be our they have lots of good meme questions. What named goblin is your favorite?
What named goblin?
Yeah.
Probably Krenko.
What do you have against Squee and Squee's Toy, though?
Squee. Yeah. I used to have an Intuition Squee casual deck back in the day.
Oh, that's nice.
It's been a long time since I've seen a Squee.
I think a underrated named goblin is Ben Aki Hermit.
I don't even think I know what that does.
I don't either, but he wears a squid on his head. He's from Champions of Kamigawa.
You can clearly see my Goblin's knowledge is lacking.
What is your favorite goblin just in general, though?
As far as gameplay or as far as just
any reason?
The one I've probably played with the most is probably Kiki Jiki.
Kiki Jiki is sweet.
So I've had that in all sorts of decks over the years. The card's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think Fanatic's actually probably my actual favorite.
Oh my god.
I'm old enough that I started playing in Tempest.
That is so funny. Lewis said the same thing.
That's terrifying.
He said
I'm clearly wrong, man. I take it back.
He also said Mog Fnatic was his favorite goblin. That's hilarious. And it was especially funny because the Undead Dwarf said that no matter what he says, tell him he's wrong if he doesn't say Mog Fnatic. And then, unprompted, he said Mog Fnatic.
There you go. I love Lewis. Lewis is one of my favorite people to argue with.
All right, last questions from Skinny. What percentage chance of making the token on turns 1, 2, and 3? And he's also wondering how much spot removal Depths tends to play.
Very little. Slow Depths will usually run 3 or 4 decays. Turbo Depths runs actual none,
Right.
unless you count Hex Mage's pseudo removal against certain things, but that doesn't really particularly matter in this spot, other than Ether Vial. What was the first part of that?
What is the percentage chance of making the 2020 on turns 1, 2, 3?
1 is more or less non-existent for slow depths. I mean, yes, they could have double Mox Diamond draws, but it's hyper unlikely. 2's relatively low percentage too, although more so. Maybe, I don't know the exact numbers, but I wouldn't expect to die to I mean, even on turn 2, you're still looking at a turn 3 attack. So
right. So the question,
turn 3 is pretty reasonable for both decks, and I think turn 2 is,
So I guess the biggest implication to understanding that statistic would be deciding, when you're on the draw, is it necessary that you just go like Wasteland Pass, or can you play your 1-drop?
I think more often than not, you're going to end up with a higher winning percentage by developing your board first.
Okay.
I think playing slow to not lose just gives the Depths player more time to find either Wasteland or for Turbo for Needle. You're just giving them time to set up.
Right.
Where the biggest thing is, there's just some number of games you're not going to win. If you go Wasteland Pass and give them a full turn, time walk yourself, then you're on one draw. You're still a full turn behind every single turn.
Right.
So there's no good way to do that and win.
Right. The only way it would work is if they just have like the turn 2 kill, but like just have a non-functional hand otherwise.
Yeah, and I think that's an acceptable.
Sure.
The games they have that, I think you just chalk it, and you'll win a higher percentage of the rest of the games.
Sounds good to me.
And overall, yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds because I've definitely felt like really unsure of what to do sometimes, because it's just like so scary when they just go like even just like fetch land go is scary out of depth sometimes. I'm just like, oh, they definitely have it.
Yeah, it's funny. Since you just mentioned Lewis, I'll bring up something that he does very well that most other Delver players refuse to do for some reason. It's right along these lines. So they often get to the point where they're on the play and have to decide on turn 2 whether they want to tap out for usually a Dreadhorde Arcanist nowadays, but whatever in the past, or less likely Young Pyromancer or Goyful Rug was a thing. They have to decide whether they want to tap out for even Ren when that was around.
Right.
Do we want to tap out for our 2-drop when they're going to get their second turn? And most Delver players will leave the Wasteland up and either play a cantrip or a Delver or whatever with the Wasteland up, and that's almost always wrong. And Lewis just jams his 2-drop into that board state every single time, and I'm 100% sure he has one of the best Delver win rates against me of anyone that I play because he does stuff like that. I think just overall your win rate is just going to be higher by making the play where, if you just have it vent to your friends that that you got nut drawn and move on.
Okay, that's really good to know. So just as Lewis says, hold your nuts and jam.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly that.
All right, that sounds good. So those are all the questions from everyone. Thank you everyone who submitted questions. I appreciate that. Let's get in a game here and see what I can do. I haven't played versus Depths in a while too, other than like the one match versus Bob. So I might be rusty too. Die roll OP. Well, so the way we're gonna play out is the whole point isn't to just like see who wins more. That's not the objective here. It's very much like crafting the optimal lines. So we're gonna be communicating a fair bit about what the contents of our hand, and like say like, okay, by me doing this is like representing this, or this is a bit of a clue into this might be in my hand, that kind of thing.
Sure.
All right, so my hand's 5 lands, none of which are Wasteland, and then a War Marshal and Expert. So this is a mulligan just in the blind in general, because it's too slow. This hand's pretty good though. So I've got Mountain Cavern, Wasteland, Lackey, Trash Master, Chain Whirler, Matron. That's a pretty solid hand. I'm not sure what I would throw back here. I think I think it would be Chain Whirler because it's not castable, and Trashmaster is better to toss into play off of Lackey on average. So I think I would throw back the Chain Whirler here. Don't tell me your hand. I think maybe just like communicate like maybe why you might be doing something.
Okay. So this is going to be amongst the most standard first turns you'll ever see from Depths. Since it runs 8 discard spells, you're almost always going to get hit with a discard spell. I think that's a fair assumption that if you do happen to know you're in your store or online when you know your opponent, I think the assumption is you're going to get hit with a discard spell every time, or very close to it. So based on your hand, hand is glacial if the Lackey's gone, so I think that's a snap take.
Yep. Here's the Lackey on top of deck now. So because my hand is so slow, I'm like really, really tempted to just wasteland you right here.
Yeah, and that's kind of the reason that we, or at least I, do this all the time. I see a lot of people on Depths fetch basics to begin with. I think that's almost always wrong unless you aren't going to be able to cast the rest of your spells in your hand. So by fetching Bayou, Bayou Thoughtseize, to me, if I was on the other side, says that this is either turbo, which I think your play is more reasonable against. But if it's slow and I fetched a Bayou, that means I want you to do that.
Okay.
So I think it could go either way. So it would depend on if you happen to know what I was on, then I think this decision's easier. But I get where you're coming from.
So I guess it's probably correct to just go Mountain Pass at least. I drew a Gem Palm, which is not super helpful until I get something on board. And obviously, like wastelanding, when I would only have two lands left in my hand, and my hand's fairly expensive. After that, like that Thoughtseize was really, really good. Okay. So now the concern is Hexmage next turn to kill me. I drew Crater Maker, which is pretty good. I wish this Gem Palm Incinerator was a munitions expert. Be a lot better. It's funny, like I normally run 3 experts, 2 Gem Palms, and then I recently wanted, because there's so much like Cloud Post online, I was just like, I have too much removal. I'm just gonna play a 3rd pile driver. So, but that's kind of punishing in this matchup. I'd much rather have another expert. So I have to just continue to hope that you don't have the kill here. Oh god. That's a terrifying Bob hit.
Yeah, you are safe though at the moment.
This hand's really not shaped up after that Thoughtseize. I wonder if I should have... No, I kind of have to play the Crater Maker there. So I saw you have a Hex Mage, but you didn't kill me last turn. So I think I'm kind of forced to play Matron here. And get what? I think I might get Mog Fanatic. Because I can potentially kill like 2 creatures if I draw a land and still hold up the Wasteland. It's the most mana efficient way to get rid of Bob. I could also get Lackey. That's more proactive. But if you play the Hex Mage, then I only have 1 removal spell instead of 2, so I think going for Fanatic makes sense here. It's a big boy. So here's the Jund draw coming through. Jeez. All right. Should have gotten Chain Whirler.
It'll be on top. You're
Nah.
good.
So I think priority numero uno is kill Bob. And so there's a question of, do I want to kill it with the Fnatic or do I want to kill it with the Gem Palm? I think I Gem Palm first, and then...
Reevaluate.
Yeah, depending on what I draw.
I think that's correct.
Alright, just drew a land, which is fine. So I gotta hold up Wasteland. I guess if you can Reclaimer... Huh. So I can't really use my Fnatic here because I think I just die if I do that. Yeah, so there's no way to beat the... So in order for me to live there, you would have to make the mistake of leading on the stage activation.
Yeah, I don't see any way around that otherwise. Because there's no way to get the Reclaimer off the table, so...
Yep. Alright, I'm dead. Yep. Die roll OP.
Yeah, pretty solid.
So, I mean, if the Lackey came down, it would have been
very, very good.
Pretty different, yeah. Alright, so I'm boarding in Needle Caracas, Chain Whirler, and 2 Pyrokinesis. And then cutting against depths is always a little tricky. I tend to shave a couple of ringleaders just because you can't really afford to tap out. So I usually go to 1 ringleader. And then it also gets tricky because you're playing Engineer, I think I'm shaving a Mogwar Marshal. And then last cut, probably Pile Driver. Like the 3rd Pile Driver is probably not necessary. And you... Hexmage lines up really well against Pile Driver, which is really annoying.
You say annoying, I say fair.
Sure.
It's a 2-1 first strike for 2. That's not very good. Needs to be able to block.
So what are you doing?
Just bringing in the 3 engineers.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the rest of Bob's sideboard is a Caracas, which I don't think is good enough. 2 chokes, which are obviously not applicable. A pile of Graveyard Hate, which I don't think is applicable. So from there, we're down to Tarmogoyf, which I don't really think that's the game we want to be playing against Goblins. I think if we're going for board stall, I think he'll eventually win that.
I've seen some Goblins player or some Depths players bring in Tarmogoyf against me, and I was never sure if that was like a standard thing or not.
I don't think that's not something I would do. And then Collector Oof, which I guess shuts off Vial, but I don't think that's good enough either. Yeah.
My hand's really not good. It's a 1-lander port Vial hand, and then a couple 2-drops. I mean, it's got a good set of creatures for the most part, but 1-lander Vial against the deck that can decay me on turn 1, I really don't want that. Alright, this is better. It's still not great. But Vial into port is basically always good, and I can also kill a turn 1 Dark Confidant, which is quite good.
No turn 1 Dark Confidant for you.
Okay. Alright, well, port is happening. Damn Urborg making Meadow awful.
It's part of the value. Tilting your opponents.
Draws have not shaped up. Not drawing any spells. I mean, yeah. Or Wastelands. No!
Yes.
Stop it. Alright, well, I'm going to make you do it, and then top deck Caracas.
Sounds fair.
Yeah. He can take 1 damage.
Got me.
And fetch to thin. Sling Gang keeps me alive as well, I guess. Alright. Got a redraw. Crocus. Damn. Alright, I'm dead. So, my hand was like very good against your fair draws, right? Because I have a Pashlik Mons, and I drew a Crater Maker, I had a removal spell, but you just had the quick 20/20 through the port.
Yeah, the opener was a little weird. I had 5 lands, but with Urborg Depths, with Bob and Hexmage, so there was really, I wasn't really going to be doing anything other than just vomiting one of those 2 plans onto the table and seeing where it went.
Yeah. So I mean, if I kept a hand with a Wasteland, like that's like pretty good for me. But I had the port instead of a Wasteland.
Yeah, I think he would have needed both because I did draw the stage on turn 2, so it would have needed to be Wasteland and port or removal. Well, you did the removal spell.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I had like 3 removal spells, so
Yeah, that probably would have gotten you through.
All right, let's try it again.
You got your wish. You were victorious on the die roll.
Oh, yeah. All right. So in the blind, I could lead on either Lackey or Vial here, but it's gonna be the Vial. I don't have any big boom booms for the Lackey, so yep. All right, this port has gotta do some weight or carry some weight. So I could play out 2/2 drops, but I'm pretty sure if I don't port you this turn, I'm probably dead. I may not be if you have like a Dark Confidant that's all you want to do, and it'd be much better for me to play my Pile Driver here because my hand is just like mono removal and a Pile Driver, but I think kind of have to port here.
Yeah, I would say that's 100% correct. I think my play of playing stage there says a lot about my hand, because in that spot, you have an onboard port, and I'm playing a stage anyway, which means if I had any green land, the green land would have come down.
Right.
If I had any other reasonable land drop, this wouldn't have been the selection.
Right.
So, to me, that says you're likely the last card in my hand land-wise is already the Depths, and I don't want to expose it to Wasteland. So regardless of whether or not I would have the Hexmage to go along with it, if you don't port, my hand is, at least I'm totally screaming that the Depths is in my hand. So
right.
I don't think you can possibly make a play there. I also have the Hexmage.
Come on.
It's also not going to matter, but I think your play was 100% correct.
That is rude.
Yeah, my hand is disgusting. I have Library, Crop Rotation, and Bob still in hand.
All right. I don't even have the 4th land to draw a Sling Gang, so turn 3 through the. Oh, the Wasteland's too deep. That sucks. Turn 3 through the port. So the port has not done a whole lot yet. Can't say it's been particularly impressive. Same sideboard plan as before.
Same on this side as well.
Yeah, this hand's just too slow. Another like good against Jund hand, but All right. I don't know if this is a keeper mulligan, actually. It's Lackey Trashmaster and then lands. One of the lands is a port.
It's close. I think if you're keeping that, you're going to be playing off the top of your deck. I think there's a decent chance that you get hit with a discard. You're likely to get hit with or decent chance anyway, that you're going to get hit with a Thoughtseize, which takes the remaining gas out of your hand. So it's Lackey in the top of your deck. Whether that's better than a random 5, it's close, probably. At least it has a quick clock, but it's a little on the clunky side. And I guess if I don't have the Thoughtseize, then it's significantly better.
Excuse me. Yeah. I'm gonna keep it and see what happens. Just throw back a Cavern. If you have turn 1 Albatross Claimer, that's really bad for me. God damn it. God damn it, Tom. God damn it. So unfair.
Deck runs a lot of creatures, especially post-board, but yeah, that's kind of...
I drew like
there's a lot of... What's that?
I drew one a Ringleader, which is just like, man, if only you had Thoughtseized me.
Yeah, well, I had that too, but the Reclaimer is the obvious play.
Jeez.
I think that's correct. Tell me if you think that's wrong. I think the Ringleader's the take there.
That makes sense to me. Ooh. All right. That was a good draw.
Boo.
This also means I'm not getting wrapped by a Plague Engineer now.
My play was immediately punished.
Okay, that's not scary.
It's terrifying. That's...
Rip and removal off the top. That's how we do it. No more goblins, though, but you are pretty low. Is this the point where I don't port to, like if you have to, like, play out a stage and then you have, like, a crop rotation, I should just, like, port in response to the crop rot? Is that a smart thing?
Port shuts off crop rot here, too. So if you port a Bayou, I can't crop rot and activate.
Oh.
One short.
Oh,
one
sure,
short.
Sure.
Yeah. The only way that you would get punished for that is if I somehow also had Mox Diamond in another land and crop rotation
right.
stage.
Right. So, in which case I would probably be dead like 2 turns ago.
I have 4 in hand, yeah, so there's almost no chance that was the thing.
Alright, Wasteland was a good draw. So if you have crop rotation, you can make Reclaimer a 3/4.
That is correct, yeah.
I don't know if it's worth playing around that, because it costs me a lot of damage. I think I just got to swing, right?
I agree. You're pushing damage, even if that is the case. You're pushing 2 extra damage.
Right. You could also just as easily just have a decay or something.
Look at you, correctly diagnosing the situation like a pro.
So you're at 3. So now I have a lot of draws that are lethal now. So now I think I'm. You have 4 mana. Is there any point in porting you here, or do I hold up my port?
Yeah, I mean, you should. I would make the assumption that I do not have a crop rotation. I would 100% have eaten your Trash Master there.
That's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So in the port, like Eldritch Reclaimer is not free to activate, right? Like the mana is somewhat intensive.
correct. Yeah.
So now if you fetch, you die. So. Okay. So I think my best draw is probably, I mean, Slungang wins on the spot. Pashlik would be very good. Fetchland, not so good. Alright, so I don't really have any attacks here. Flooding out a little bit. So are you.
Yeah, well, we are on turn 6 in decks with no cantrips.
Yeah.
This is how Magic the Gathering plays out sometimes.
Yeah.
When we elect to play non-blue colors.
Nice. Aether Vial, just what I wanted. Okay. Can't really do anything about that. Do you think I should port the Wasteland here then, or do I just hold up my port at this point?
I don't think that sequence plays out profitably. So if you port the Wasteland, I'll Wasteland your Wasteland, and if you Wasteland me back, I sacrifice the land you hit to Reclaimer.
Right.
So maybe if you draw a Haste Goblin, that is lethal. If I don't have anything else,
Yeah.
if you make me do that, so maybe that's a line you want to take. But that's on board. You're not going to get an advantage by making that.
So I think I should just hold up port here in case you draw stage. Because, I mean, you have so much mana that the porting mana denial is not relevant. Since you didn't play a land, am I safe to port you end step here?
Yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't want to do this.
Yeah, it's just... Might as well.
If I have double crop rot in hand, your port doesn't matter anyway.
Right. Alright. Lots of good draws. Do you want to guess what it is?
Hopefully a second Aether Vial. It's the right draw.
Yep. Okay, so now I just have to hold up the port. Right? Yeah, you have enough mana to...
Yep.
Come on... Goblin. Ideally, Slungang. Way to kill Plague Engineer would also be good. Look who it is.
Boo.
All right, that one really just actual top deck horror. What was your hand?
Thoughtseize.
Nice.
Real life didn't really feel like those were impactful versus the cards you were putting into play.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I wonder if I want to leave in 2 ringleaders in this matchup. I don't know if they're better or worse than what I have going on, though. 2 ringleaders. I guess since I'm boarding in, I am boarding in the Caracas, so I'm up to 25 lands. I could shave a land. It seems weird to board in a 4-drop, or like bring in another 4-drop and then like cut a land. But I mean, 24 lands is enough.
You'll draw a Vial. You won't need 4 mana.
But I guess I'll also it does make my mana worse color-wise. Like I'm already pretty stretched on red sources, and I'm bringing in 2 Chain Whirlers, so cutting a red source is like kind of sketch.
Makes sense.
But it definitely would have been nice to be able to top deck Ringleader, because like the 1 Ringleader got Thoughtseize. I mean, I'll try it, I guess. I guess I'll cut a Mountain. I don't think you like Wasteland mana screwing me is like something worth playing around. You're probably not using your Wastelands that aggressively.
Yeah, not unless it was a really strange draw.
All right, this hand's really it's pretty decent. It's like one of the best one-landers I could hope for.
Let's take a look at it.
It's pretty good against a discard spell. That makes sense. So the fact that you took the Needle makes me want to say that says you don't have Abrupt Decay, because you could have taken Vial and then Abrupt Decayed the second Vial.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay. I drew Cavern, so I could play Lackey instead of Vial. How aggressive is that? So you could have you have a fair number of creatures to block it.
Yeah, given that you have no answer currently in your hand, it doesn't require 3 red mana or 3 counters on either Vial.
I think
basically any creature, any Abrupt Decay, you're looking at probably 18 cards that make that play look embarrassing. So
yeah,
I think this is the correct line.
Bob, yep. Would love a Mog Fanatic. Probably too important to port here rather than play second Vial.
I think so, yeah.
Punished for not floating.
Yeah.
Unless I'm dead.
You're not dead. I was just trying to click through my turn faster. But yeah, that was not smart.
So you're tagging with Bob. So, and you know about the Lackey in my hand. So that says to me you have Elvish Reclaimer to block, or a second Bob.
I believe that is also a correct assessment.
If it's a second Bob or Reclaimer, Munitions Expert off the top would put me really, really far ahead. So I think I should take the hit here. All right, really want to draw Munitions Expert. Crater Maker gets there as well.
I ban you from drawing both of those cards.
All right. I'm getting so punished for my rules split change. I drew Gem Palm.
Yikes.
Yeah, Gem Palm's like way worse in this matchup than Expert. Like it's like night and day. I mean, that might drawing that instead of Expert like is literally game losing, because Expert your Bob, put in Chain Whirler, or no, Expert your Reclaimer, put in Chain Whirler, kill your Bob is like huge, and then I have 2 Slang Gangs in my hand to win pretty fast after that.
That seems reasonable.
But I drew Gem Palm instead of the card that it normally is. So there we go. I just got to port. And do I port stage now? Probably.
I think given given your hand, I think you do, yeah.
Ugh. I mean, you got 2 Dark Confidant triggers. It's like pretty hard to come back from that. I need to be able to kill Bob extremely on time, and I haven't been doing that very consistently in these games. Like, I think even if I drew a 3rd land there, if I drew a red source there, I would have traded Lackey plus Jump Palm for the Reclaimer pretty easily, I think. Or maybe I would have just Jump Palmed the Bob. It's hard to say. No, because I have a Chain Whirler, I think I would have traded off Lackey for the Reclaimer. Yep. So Pyrokinesis 1 time.
I forbid it.
Come on, Pyro. Damn it. My draws have not been very good to me. I just killed myself, but I don't think it matters. Yeah. So, decaying that, you just want to keep this land gang from coming down, because that's the only way I'm really going to be able to race you. It's a weird fetch.
Just playing around something crazy like Pyrokinesis. So if you draw that and somehow manage to kill both my Reclaimers in response to me fetching to activate 1 end step.
Mm-hmm. And I'm getting punished for cutting a red source, right? Like this. Actually, Cavern might be worse than even though Cavern casts black spells. I think Cavern's probably worse than Mountain in this matchup.
It's possible, yeah.
I'm just gonna make you do it now, if you want to do it, and then I guess you have the Hex Mage, so it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm supposed to port Bayou there. I don't know if it matters.
It gives me slightly more information to play with this way. But yeah, I don't know that it would have mattered.
So I got a top deck Caracas right here. And then I'm still pretty dead, but you know. Yeah.
All right. Right on time.
Right on time.
Right on time.
All right. Well, I kept a pretty ambitious, 1-lander, and it did not pan out. The shaving of lands was really punished there for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a little on the variance side. You're still on a 24-lander.
Yeah.
1 land. I think you mulligan. I didn't mulligan once, I don't think, in any of the 5 games, and you mulligan in almost every game.
This is true.
So I think we're, seeing a little bit of a one-sided variance. And to keep on theme, I'll win the die roll.
This hand probably keepable in the play, not on the draw. This is like 1 land, double Lackey, Slingang, Trashmaster, Pashlik Mons. Like, this kills really fast if Lackey goes unanswered, but it's too risky. Even in the blind, I wouldn't keep this on the draw. Not great at drawing reasonable 7s, apparently. Alright, I mean, this is a keepable 6, but not very good. Wow, you finally mulliganed? It's a goddamn miracle.
You should have had me play turbo. I mulligan way more with turbo.
Right. I think I throw back ringleader here. I'm generally pretty liberal about throwing back ringleader on the mulligans, especially when I have a land light situation again. No justice to rip the lackey. Are you just going to turn 2 me?
Yeah.
Cool.
Less thinking that way.
Cool. Alright, let's see if I can do anything to change this up a little bit. I think... Yeah, I mean, no, I don't. I think the boarding plan is fine. I just need to hit my sequencing. Like it's really like the early game tempo seems to be everything. All right, this seems fine. It's pretty defensive is how I'd characterize it. You got it.
All the stuff.
Yeah. Probably take the expert here, right?
It depends on the context of my hand. The
Right.
expert does very little against certain hands, and then is a house against others. So,
So what would I mean, depending on what you take here, like what could I glean about your hand from what you take?
so I think if I take the expert, that obviously screams that I have Dark Confidant or something along those lines that actually care about you killing. The matron, I think, if I leave that in your hand, that says you're probably likely to die on turn 2 if you don't just leave the Wasteland of the Caracas up. But given the context of your hand, I think the matron has to be the pick unless you're trying to protect a Dark Confidant, because this game's going to last a little while with you having 2 lands-based answers, and the matron essentially gives you the most optionality going forward.
Makes sense. Right, so I kind of have to play the Wasteland here. As usual, my instinct is to just Wasteland you. But I don't know if that's actually smart. I'm really good at answering creatures with my hands, so I think I could pass and just like try to weather the storm of whatever Jund stuff you've got to throw at me.
Yeah, I think that is the right call for what it's worth.
Yep. Might end up flashing an expert and step or just cycling Gem Plum, depending on what you do here. You just have like an engineer. Thoughtseize. I kind of regret not wastelanding because black sources are not forthcoming. Yeah, sure.
All the munitions experts.
Okay. Alright, I think I'm flashing one in here. I think I have to put something on board. Pyrokinesis looking pretty bad, like I thought it would.
Well, I mean, you got triple discard spelled.
Yeah.
Your whole graveyard is red cards.
Yeah, but I mean that's the reason to not like it in the matchup.
Yeah, I think triple discard's a little over the top, though.
I guess. feel like if I don't wasteland you, I'm just gonna get engineered. I think I would do it. Obviously, would have been way better to do it last turn, but okay.
It is a 27 land deck.
Yeah.
So, I think it would be unlikely for. I mean, it happens, but to keep Urborg as your only colored source would be a little unlikely in the matchup, where I haven't shown a Hex Mage and haven't shown anything else.
This is so me flashing in my expert for no value is gonna cost me a lot here.
Second Wasteland's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, more discard.
That's exactly what I want.
All right, I would love a red card. Okay. Yep. You shouldn't be able to beat Wasteland from the current board state, so I don't feel a need to play on my Caracas. Right?
Yeah, I don't see a way that that's really realistic. I mean, Turbo could have like Elvish Spirit Guide shenanigans, but this deck's not going to have that.
I drew Crater Maker. I think I need to kill this Bob.
Yeah, it would not allow me to draw any extra cards.
Yeah. So I guess from this board state, I would say your hand has got to be just like tons of green cards.
Well, you know the Inquisition that was revealed, right?
Oh, that's true. So you're copying my Wastelands. Do I just like Wasteland your Depths here?
Yeah, I don't think you want to get into a game where I have an active Wasteland.
Yeah, especially
before
with this Caracas.
Yeah, exactly. You want to force me to find my own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not really in any worse position. If this was the same board state, but one of my stages was a Wasteland, you'd be in the same spot. You're relying on the Caracas either way.
For sure. All right, gotta play the Caracas. This is experts trying to go the distance.
I want one.
You can bounce my Pashlik Mons now.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that.
Alright, now I feel like I'm dead to Crop Rot Wasteland, right? Extra damage.
Got it.
Does porting now do anything?
I don't think so, because I have double stage.
Right. Yeah. There's no way out of this, is there?
Not with Pyrokinesis being your last card.
Yeah. Alright. Oh, Matron's the next draw. That'll just give me lethal. Man.
You were correct in the assessment of the hand, by the way. It was Crop, Elvish, or Claimer were the three unknowns.
I mean, let's keep trying, because it's... I don't know. It's playing out kind of differently than I've had in the past, to be honest.
In what ways?
Just basically, maybe my Depths opponents tend to over sideboard because things tend to be more like I'm getting more of those Jund draws.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I don't think that's the game that Depths wants to be playing in this matchup. I think it wants to be threatening you. It can have its devastating cards. Like Reclaimer's a pretty good card on its own. That doesn't dilute the combo. Right. I don't think this is where Grief is at its best, but maybe I'm wrong. This isn't my primary Depths variant. That's just where I land on it.
Great. I'm also mulliganing to 5 because I had like pretty medium 7 and then no lander 6. I think I'd probably keep like their throwback most of my spells and just keep lands. It's the one of Once Upon a Time.
Look, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Alright, so you find the Hex Mage, Bayou, Thoughtseize, Inquisition, sure. Alright, let's see if you have Crop Rot or a Borg Hex Mage.
You know I have one of those pieces.
Yeah. Oh my god. Do you have Depths too?
Of course I do.
Oh my god, are you kidding me? I almost just wastelanded you on turn 1. Alright.
I have a Mox Diamond and extra black sources too. The wasteland would have gotten you killed too.
Alright, you said. So the nuts. Turn 2 through port is pretty stupid.
Agreed. It's part of why you play Depths. It can be dumb.
Alright. I've yet to get a hand that I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna get there. I'm always like, this is maybe. Alright. This is decent. There's the Mox Diamond finally showing up. Alright.
Don't fanatic me.
No. So here's the thing. It's like, am I playing a 2-drop or am I holding up Wasteland?
Yeah, this is a tougher spot because you know I have, this easy access a couple of different ways, but the Hex Mage in particular is glaring. I don't know.
I think
it's feel bad if you don't develop, but I mean you do have the vial, so I think it's a little bit more questionable. It's definitely feel bad if you tap out for a 2-drop and then die.
Yeah. I think in all likelihood I would hold up Wasteland here. Great.
What? Don't worry. No issues.
At least you took 3 damage to grab it.
Rewarded for your play.
Yeah. Alright, so So I have the choice of Violin Crater Maker or Pile Driver, and then Gem Palm something, or Gem Palm the Hex Mage. And then if I put in the Crater Maker, I could then pop the Dark Confidant. But then I don't have a direct answer to the Engineer that I know is in your hand. So I think I hide the Crater Maker Though I guess you're probably more likely to have discard than a decay. So I think playing out the creator, it says creator maker's safer on the battlefield than in the hand.
It's 8 discard spells versus 4 decays, so just mathematically, unless my play pattern gave something away, and regardless of whether I had either, I think my plays were really scripted. Turn 1 Bob and the turn 2 combo is how I would play it out regardless of whether I had a decay or not.
Okay.
So I don't think you can get a particular read on that. I think I'm likely to play a turn 1 Bob over a discard spell too, so I don't think the way I sequenced gave away anything as regard to which one will be more likely.
Gotcha.
So just
and then
revert to the numbers at that point.
The other question is, I'm not going to creator maker the Bob here. Because I know you have the engineer, and I don't want to tap out on my wasteland because I might just die if you have another Hex Mage. Crop Rat.
This is an interesting turn.
That's terrifying. So I know you have Crop Rot in hand. Wastelands, the Depths, or the Bayou? Probably the Depths, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm swapping out either way. So if you hit the Depths, I'm likely swapping out Depths for Depths.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit the Bayou, then you're opening up all kinds of really bad lines. So if the Bayou transforms into... I guess I made my land drop, so I guess it doesn't really make too much of a difference. The Bayou could transform into an Urborg, but that wouldn't really... It cuts me off of exactly Hex Mage if you target the Depths, because I have to use one of
but if you
the
had
two colored sources to Crop Rot.
If you had Hex Mage, you just would have played it first, right?
Not necessarily.
Why wouldn't you?
So if I play it and put it on the stack, you can Wasteland in response.
Oh, sure.
So
okay,
this line kind of hides whether or not I have Hex Mage. It leaves it open. So if you target the Bayou, I could keep 2 black sources essentially and play Hex Mage in hand. If you hit the Depths, the green has to turn... One of my 2 colored sources has to turn the Depths into another Depths or into another color. But either way, it shuts off a Hex Mage line for this particular turn.
Okay. I don't think I would have seen that. Okay. My hand's pretty good. So I know you have Engineer in hand, but you don't have the mana to cast it, so that's cool. Take the War Chief. Okay. Alright, I think this is Operation Mana Deny now. Yeah. Yep. And so what I'm gonna do is blow up your Mox and then ping the Bob. Patch, like I've believed, is like one of my best cards in this matchup in a lot of ways, just because it has all those like these incidental points of damage that really matter. Okay. Blowing up the Mox was pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
Taking to 3 or 4 is interesting. I think I should leave it on 3 in case I draw War Chief. All right. I think I play my land because if I draw a 4th land, I want to be able to activate Patchwork Bones. But I think I have lethal here or very close to it. I drew the 2nd War Chief, so that should be lethal.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I do have the Hex Mage, so that line matters. Yeah.
Okay. I got a game. Yeah, so like that is kind of like what my plan I think should be versus Depths, is attack the mana as much as possible, because if you were able to freely cast all your spells, then I would have lost that game.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, the one spot where you could have gotten tripped up was if you targeted the colored source with the Wasteland.
Yeah, I think I would have done that by myself. All right, Sand's okay. I'm really not a fan of Pyrokinesis in this matchup. It has yet to be any good. This is like a very medium hand that I'm keeping because of a Wasteland, right? Medium minus, even. I guess it's good if you go like Reclaimer into Bob, so. Do you always lead on Thoughtseize there, basically? Like even if you had like a Reclaimer?
On the play, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's in this matchup, there's so many valuable ones.
Right.
A lot of your hands fall apart with no Vial or
Right.
no Lackey. Like they lean on those 2 cards very heavily. So.
I really want to Wasteland you. Like really bad.
You have that option.
I drew a port, so mana denial plan is like more realistic, I think. Alright, we're doing it. Just have another Orborg that happens. Okay. Yep. This Pyrokinesis is. I don't think I'm supposed to be boarding these in necessarily. They have felt very bad. Okay. Just playing the Vial. I think I supposed to port the Wasteland here. Does that make sense?
So what's your thinking behind it?
Having the Wasteland be tapped opens up my own drawn wastelands, or if like you go for the kill here and I have Karakas, it punishes you for doing that.
I think that's fair, yeah.
2-1 beats.
Gotta get there.
I guess the other thing would be if I ported your Bayou and then ported you again, I could cut you off of Crop Rot.
Would you actually do that during your main phase, though?
Well, I can Pyrokinesis to Hexmage, so I could like port you on U-turn, comes back to my turn, port you again, make you empty your mana or active or cast Crop Rot, and then I Pyrokinesis to Hexmage.
That's fair. It's a lot of resources, though.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm just passing here. My draws have been okay, but it's hard to... I don't know. I could cast Matron rather than port. I don't know what's better.
Free Hexmage. Free Hexmage.
It is kind of tempting, right? I mean, you must have a second one if you're doing that, I guess, but yeah, that happens. And you have a wasteland, so I think I have to just port now rather than waiting. Yeah. Like imagine if that Pyrokinesis was another Pithing Needle, right?
Yeah, that would be significantly better.
The fact that I've taken 4 damage is really relevant because it makes the Slang Gang way worse. Ha! Funny joke deck.
Right on time.
Every single time. Alright.
Yeah, I think the thing that's becoming really clear from my end, since these are my first 4 matchups with slow versus goblins, is that you definitely want to prioritize cards that are cheap that interact with the combo. So back to our initial conversation, if you're not going to have things like Edict or Triumph in the board because this isn't really a deck that's worthy of hate, and you want a more versatile option that can have applications elsewhere, Needle seems like a good place to be.
Yeah. For sure. Needle, when Depths was popular, I was playing 2 Needles and Karakas, and often Karakas was in the main. And how do you, I know I've talked a lot about how little I value like Sting Scourger or Warren Weirding as cards. How do you view them?
I think they're pretty bad. I mean, there were a couple of sequences where you drew Wasteland off the top where, yeah, I wouldn't be able to freely sorcery speed if I know Sting Scourger is in the list. That's not part of your work. Part of others is Sting Scourger doesn't seem to be all that present anymore in most of these lists. But when it is, it does force us to play at sorcery speed, and Vial becomes much more threatening, although it's kind of telegraphed if it sits on 2.
Right.
But I don't think the card's good generally in enough spots to justify it, so I think you're in the right place, but you'll definitely get percentage just from it being in your list.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can live long enough to the point where you have a Vial on 2 and 3 mana, the Depths player, can't just ignore Matron and Sting Scourger in all situations. So
right.
It definitely affects the pacing.
Right.
And it's a big deal if I can't it's 4 matches. There was at least 4 games where I just freely just did it during my own turn.
Yeah.
Or like a double sequence thing where you had a full turn with the token in play.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's I would say pretty big thing. I didn't get to cast Sling Gang the entire like any of those 4 matches we played.
that's incorrect. You killed me with it once.
Oh, that's true. I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? The games were not. I mean, obviously the matchup's unfavored, but I don't think it's necessarily 0-4 unfavored, and I definitely had some rough hands there.
No, there's definitely some variance. You definitely mulled more than me. I won at least 2, if not 3 of the 4 die rolls, so I was on the play more.
Yeah. I think I kept like 2 7s.
Yeah, so there was definitely some variance baked into there. I don't think the matchup's going to play out like this. I also had, in my opinion, more turn 2s than would be the norm or average for this version of it, especially since Bob trimmed down to 3 Mox Diamonds.
Right.
I don't think I should have the combo on turn 2 as often as I did. It would be one thing if I was hyper London mulling.
Right. But you just had 7s that had it.
I only mulled the one. I did have it on 6-1 game, but I certainly wasn't like digging for it. Like every hand I had was did something specific on the first couple of turns.
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have the combo, it meant either Reclaimer or Bob, or Reclaimer and Bob were coming down. I was doing something very strong on the first couple of turns every game, and your deck kind of just some of the mulls and some of the draws off the top. You had quite a few dead turns, like in the early portion of the game, and that's just a bad formula when someone's doing something powerful every turn too, and your deck is hiccuping on a good number of them.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as far as like main deck cards to improve the matchup, favoring Munitions Expert over Gem Palm seems to be pretty significant. There were at least, I think, 2 games where if I had an Expert over a Gem Palm that I could have won, where I would have been able to answer the Bob or the Reclaimer on time. Like Lackey would have been able to connect and drop in a Sling Gang, if not for the Gem Palm not being Expert, which is pretty huge.
Yeah, it was relevant in a game that I forced it out of your hand too. There was one where you had 2. I took 3 discard spells between another relevant card, and you had 2 in your hand. It was very relevant because, just if I hadn't had triple discard spell, it would have just taken over the game. So I think that card definitely has value.
Yeah. So something I've normally experienced against Depths that didn't show up in our games here is that Chain Whirler is like one of our best cards. But maybe it's worse against this version because you're not playing with the main deck Safekeepers.
Yeah, maybe a play style thing too. Like, I don't know that I'm playing this deck the same way like Bob or Dave Long or someone would play. I don't have reps like they do with it, so I may be stuck in my play style of looking for the combo more frequently than they do, because that's generally how my versions do things. So it's possible that, like, I guess one sequence that came up was when I crop rotated. One of the games I lost was I crop rotated into a second Depths. At that point, I had
you'd buy you and nothing else, right? Or you'd the Mox, but I was about to shatter the Mox.
Yes, you shattered the Mox. So had I turned the Depths into an Urborg, my hand at the time was another creature. It was the Hex Mage and a Plague Engineer.
Right.
So I could have just tried to slow the game down and play it that way, but I just don't want to extend the game against goblins like that. So I played it in a more of a high risk method or strategy, and I think I probably did that in a lot of the games. It burned me in that particular game, but it probably helped in others.
Sure.
So I think a play style thing, maybe a lot of people that are attracted to slow Depths are attracted to it because it is a little grindier and has that plan built in, and they probably lean on that more than I do. So that might be some of the, especially in sideboarding too. My sideboarding was, okay, these engineers are good, I'll bring them in and shave 3 cards. Like, I didn't look at the farm, the goifs, that kind of thing. So if you said you're facing those in league play versus opponents or in paper versus opponents, that's probably a play style thing. So I think, maybe cross your fingers and hope that a lot of your Depths opponents don't figure out that
they don't need to play that style.
Yeah, you don't need to go in that direction in this matchup. It might be better for you if you can do that, but that's not your first choice.
Yeah,
because I think you're gonna, like what you just said with the Chain Whirler, like, if I have a bunch of X1s in my deck, I don't want to be getting 2 or more cards blasted by that right off the board. But
Right.
you know, I could be wrong too, but it felt comfortable playing the deck the way I did.
Yeah. I definitely in the future would not board in 2 Pyrokineses. It was never effective. It was always just like I did not have the red cards to freely pitch to it, especially when I'm boarding down to 1 ringleader. I just don't have enough cards to spew. You know, it's not like you can ringleader and then Pyrokinesis like you can normally do against like Delver, where you know you ringleader first, or like you may Pyrokinesis early and then ringleader draws you back into it, or you ringleader and then you Pyrokinesis. The card disadvantage matters a lot more, and you're also not like overcommitting multiple creatures to the board.
Yeah, I don't think I seriously considered attacking you to death once in those 4 matches.
Right. Whereas people seem to try to. I've had lots of players like try to do that against me. It's like they try to just do the whole beatdown thing.
Yeah, there was one game where I had 2 Reclaimers and another creature, maybe a Hex Mage.
Right.
3 or 4 creatures in play.
Right.
And you were like, oh, where's the Chain Whirler?
Yeah. Well,
You know?
yeah. But that was the game where I just had no development because I had my mana kind of crapped out on me.
Yeah, so even in that board state, I could have started swinging with the Reclaimers, but
Didn't.
the combo still felt like the better path. Like just brick wall you, and eventually, 4 Wastelands isn't going to hold up against the combo.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're running into a lot of depths, definitely, I think Pithing Needle is like by far the best sideboard card we have.
Yeah, I think Edict. Well, against slow depths, they're gonna have so many creatures. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm so stuck in the mindset
Right.
of the versions that I run that don't have very many creatures.
Right. Turbo, you would rather have like Diabolic Edict. Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, against this version, you're gonna run face first into a decay from time to time, but if you have so much removal,
Right.
that Bob shouldn't stick. It did a little bit here and there.
Yeah,
but I don't think Bob's gonna.
Bob shouldn't stick that often. That's like I never had my answers to Bob on time. That was a big part too. Like you drew like multiple cards off Bob's a good number of games, and like we should, especially post board, I should never be letting Bob get a trigger. Just absolutely never should let that happen.
So I think that was a bit of an anomaly. I don't think that's how the games will typically play out.
Yeah.
So if you can keep that off the board, it certainly opens things up much more.
Yeah. Because as you draw cards with Bob, that also like weakens the whole mana denial access because you're way more likely to like have a free land for your Mox Diamond or just have lands in general.
Yeah, and like we've discussed a couple of times, this version I think has 27. Some versions have like as many as 28. So yeah, you certainly don't want to be wasteland trading for lands in a deck that's 50%, almost 50% lands that's drawing 2 cards a turn.
Right.
Like that's just not a winning. To say nothing of walking into crop rotations and things like that.
For sure. I'm trying to think, it's like in terms of how like aggro or conservative I was with my wasteland usage. Getting aggro with it paid off once, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It got brutally punished in one game where I had the second Urborg.
Right. Yeah.
And then I think it paid off once.
So I mean, like that's kind of like how much are you willing to lean into variance, and so I think that's like how many sideboard cards do you have for the matchup? Like how bad do you feel like your chances are, and if you feel like you're pretty unfavored, I feel like it's and like you don't have a whole lot else going on, then you probably need to take that chance that like the early wasteland just like breaks their hand.
Yeah, I think the time you did it towards the end of the matches was absolutely correct because you said you drew a port too, and your hand was air. It was
I think it was literally all lands, right? Because I mulled a 5 and you thought
no creatures, the cycling card and Pyrokinesis. Yeah, that was the hand at that point.
Yeah. So it was definitely some awkwardness with like when like you would have the discard heavy draws when I had the removal heavy draws, and then I'd just be like nothing to kill.
Yeah.
So that will determine things. So obviously not shocking, but a little disappointed, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to factor in that we have a obnoxiously small sample size, and
very true.
Crap went wrong on your end.
Yeah, it did.
Draws were below average, mulls were above average, and reverse for me.
Right.
So when those two things come together in a matchup that's probably fairly difficult to begin with.
Right. Well, I hope that people who watch can at least learn something. I wish we got into some of those really intricate situations that I've had against like Bob, where we've had just like, I've had games where he's like landing engineers and has various creatures, but the combo hasn't fully come together. And then I've had games where just like Pashlik Mons was like the best card in my deck because I was like activating him to kill plague engineers and stuff like that. And I've had like multiple games like that, which I don't know. I don't know if maybe that was just unusual, but
Yeah, I think I definitely made a mistake around that card in the game that you took over with the Crater Maker into killing Bob.
Yeah.
I don't think I should have taken the War Chief. I think I was looking at the clock and figured it gave me an extra turn, but making you choose between the Hex Mage and the Bob would have been much better.
If you took the Pashlik Mons, then I go War Chief, Pile Driver, Lackey, attack.
Yeah, so the clock was a full turn faster.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my thinking when I took it, but then you obliterated my board, and
Yeah.
maybe there wasn't a great selection there, but
yeah, you're definitely kind of in a tough spot for that discard decision. So I guess additional Crater Makers, like the fourth Crater Maker over like another Pile Driver, would probably be good for this matchup. War Chief's pretty good in this matchup because you got to turn that corner pretty quickly. It's really helpful when you can. That's probably what I would say as far as like main deck construction, reasonable things to do.
Yeah, I think Pile Driver may be more of a win more card.
Yeah, it's definitely not great in this matchup for sure, because he gets blocked pretty easily, and especially by Hex Mage. So, whereas I normally only play 2 Pile Drivers, I'm playing 3 right now just because of the particular, combination in the meta of very high amounts of combo, like spell combo, being Breach, and then a lot of blue stuff, like a lot of blue creatures, a lot of blue spells. Like people are playing Blue Blast, people are playing Drown the Luck, so the protection from blue is really relevant. And then he's really good against Cloud Post because all you have to do is just like hit him really hard. They don't really have interaction for Pile Driver. But in this matchup, this is like the combo matchup where he's really pretty mediocre because you're not going to have enough resources on board most of the time to really punch a lot of damage with Pile Driver.
Yeah. Or if you do, you're probably winning the game anyway.
Exactly.
You're not dead and you have that board.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. I think that'll be it for us. Thanks for joining me, Tom. I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, it's a blast.
And hope everyone enjoys this video. Thank you so much for signing up on the Patreon to check this out. And hope to see you next month.